Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. I'm going to do a video trying to synthesize my thoughts concerning what has taken place in the last 24 hours with the assassination murder of Charlie Kirk. And we're going to start with talking about how it's quite difficult for people like me who sit on the opposite end of the spectrum to wade through our thoughts about Kirk's death, given the egregious things he said before. So there's that kind of psychological tension I talked about on my live stream last night. And yet we still have to strive for empathy. Empathy is the root of morality. And if we want to properly morally evaluate this, we need to overcome some of our biases. And yet it's really very difficult because it looks like the president and the Republican right, certainly in many spheres, is approaching this from a very divisive point of view, and arguably this is the modern American version of Kristallnacht, and we could be in for a very rough ride. Some of the reactions have been absolutely horrendous, including Donald Trump's own, and I want to just point out how horrendously divisive Donald Trump's statements were, and I'm going to compare them to Joe Biden's statements after the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, and just show you the difference between calling for unity and calling for civil war is. And then we're going to look at the hypocrisy concerning some of the claims. Nancy Mace, for example, absolutely horrendous claims, in my opinion, showing rank hypocrisy and an unwillingness to accept that political violence has taken place from the right in say, Minnesota. And indeed, there seems to be rather a lot of silence about the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, given that the kid that tried to assassinate him didn't fit into being labelled on the left, right? And so there is some very, very selective memory taking place here. And I think some of the news channels are not helping as well. Fox News, I'm looking at you. But I'm going to start with a difficult subject of Charlie Kirk himself. And what I'm not doing, I'm absolutely not justifying or excusing his murder. What I'm trying to do is understand my own psychology in terms of like trying to find empathy with a person that if you had asked me about 2 days ago, I would have said I'm close to despising him. I do not like him at all because he has egregious views that I think make him a bit of a moral monster. Now, I'm just going to give you a cut, but I'm also going to talk about how some of his own words have not made it easy for himself in terms of, one, empathy, and two, gun violence, right? And like, I don't want to say he's hoisted by his own petard because that's horrible, because he's been killed and that's horrific. And we must condemn all sorts of political violence like that, obviously. But there's a deep irony there, in dark irony in some of the things that have been said by himself. So Charlie Kirk, for example, is no fan of the things I hold dear. For example, support for Ukraine. Charlie Kirk said, quote, "We don't support you." This is to Vladimir Zelensky. Vladimir Zelensky said, "Thank you, America. Thank you for your support. Thank you for this visit. Thank you, POTUS, Congress, and the American people. Ukraine needs just and lasting peace, and we are working exactly for that." Charlie Kirk says, "We don't support you. Show some respect next time. You are an ungrateful, petulant child who is responsible for 1 million dead." So Charlie Kirk straight away was saying Vladimir Zelensky is responsible for the death of 1 million people. That just makes me so angry, right? And yet I'm at this period where I'm trying desperately to find empathy for the death of Charlie Kirk. Sean Pinner, who is a former prisoner of war in Ukraine, says, "Look, I'm not left, nor do I condone the violence against Charlie Kirk. But let's be clear, he peddled lies and Russian propaganda, ignored Russia's genocide in Ukraine," and by the way, he had egregious views on Israel's genocide as well, "and dismissed my home and my community with his lies, all while preaching Leviticus, stoning of gays, and questioning the competence of black pilots. Quote, why are we giving weapons and money to a country few can find on a map? Quote, the east of Ukraine is historically Russian territory. Quote, Zelensky is an illegal elected president. I won't be giving him another thought after this. Yankee Stadium, on the other hand." So that's because before tonight's game, we held a moment of silence in memoriam of Charlie Kirk, says the New York Yankees. Kirk founded the youth activist group Turning Point USA and had become a fixture on college campuses. Charlie Kirk, a husband and father of 2 children, was 31 years old. And the notion of being a father of those children is one of the routes into empathy. And I'm going to talk about a guy called Dean Withers, who's shown incredible empathy while being diametrically opposed to Charlie Kirk. And yet, when we're talking about children, it's interesting to note, this is a Newsweek article, Charlie Kirk has suggested children should watch public executions. And he believes the stoning of the gays, as per Leviticus, is justified, and you should have children watching that, I guess. God's perfect law says gay people should be stoned to death. So it's quite difficult. Here is someone who has been killed for their views, unjustifiably so, but then has what I think are unjustifiable opinions about the death of other people that I think is absolutely disgusting. And so there's my cognitive dissonance. Just to remind everyone, here's Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Mark Robertson, and Charlie Kirk all spreading conspiracy theories and making jokes about Nancy Pelosi's husband being beaten almost to death by a hammer by an intruder in their home. So the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, for the Democrats, her husband was beaten almost to death with a hammer. And this led to horrific responses from the right, who are now calling on this rhetoric from the left is terrible, and that's what killed Charlie Kirk. There's a tiny possibility there might be more to this story than meets the eye, says Elon Musk, spreading conspiracy theories that are simply not true about Paul Pelosi. Donald Trump Jr. saying, I've got my Paul Pelosi Halloween costume ready because the guy hit him around the head with a hammer. I think he might have been in his pants. Then you've got this again, Mark Keith Robinson about Paul Pelosi. I'm sorry, Paul, but I don't believe you or the press. Believe you in what? The police came round and he is virtually dead with hammer blows to the head. I don't believe you. And so here's a Halloween costume. Ridiculing that. And then Charlie Kirk himself saying Charlie Kirk calls for his audience to post bail for the Pelosi attacker. Quote, if some amazing patriot out there in San Francisco or the Bay Area wants to really be a midterm hero, someone should go and bail this guy out, bail him out, and then go ask some questions. So then we're being asked to have all of this empathy and sympathy for this man who has himself had really egregious views. So Eric Garcia for Congress says, being a shit human with no regard for well-being of others still makes a person in my eyes. When the husband of Representative Pelosi was brutally attacked, Charlie asked for people to bail out the attacker. He had no regard for the lives of others, but his life and the lives of people like him that spread hate and fear matter to me. He didn't deserve death. And that's that kind of tension, which is, here is a guy that says horrible things and doesn't actually regard the lives of other people in the way that we are claiming, we are feeling obliged to do for him. He has not shown that for other people. And yet here is Eric Garcia getting over that to say he didn't deserve death. Hate the ideas all you want, violence is never the answer, says someone else. And that's kind of where I'm at. In light of today's shooting, says this source, shooting death of Charlie Kirk, it's worth remembering that while Paul Pelosi was lying in an ICU with a fractured skull, vile ghouls like Don Jr. thought it was comedy content. These people don't just enable violence, they celebrate it. And that's where we're going to come onto the hypocrisy thing in a minute. But when I was saying that Charlie Kirk hasn't helped himself with his own rhetoric, we need to feel empathy for him, for his family. It's hard to feel empathy. He's no longer with us, but we need to feel for his family. And yet this is Charlie Kirk's own set of views on empathy.
I can't stand the word empathy. Actually, I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage. But I can't stand the word empathy. Actually, I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage. But I can't stand the word empathy. Actually, I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that...
And I presume New Age means woke. Maybe we can analogize it to that. And then, famously at the moment, the other words he said concerned gun deaths. And these are the kind of hoist by your own petard type sentiments that I think makes it very difficult, to access that empathy, or it makes it more difficult.
I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal.
So there's that dark irony of the universe there in him advocating for the necessary deaths of people in order to have the rights to have guns. And I forgot to say this in my live stream last night. Surely Utah as a state needs to look at their laws, because in that university environment, if you have the right permits, you have the right to both open carry and concealed carry guns. Any number of people could have walked into that environment with guns legally, both hidden and out in the open. And I just think that's insane. Honestly, it blows my mind. For me, the right to bear arms, we don't have the right to bear arms in the UK like they do in the US. So it's not an inalienable human right. It is just a piece of legislation or a piece of guidance written on a piece of paper. That's 275 years ago, whatever, 250 years ago, sorry. And so it's not an inalienable right. I'm not going to get into the ontology of human rights, but I don't have that right here, and I'm really glad I don't have that right. I don't want that right. I don't want to live in a country whereby, do you know the last time I saw guns in the UK? Someone holding a gun. I can't remember. There was a time when the police outside my house back 17 years ago, maybe a bit more. In my old house, they were stopping a drugs gang in a place called Gosport. They're driving past my house in Fareham. They shut the roundabout down there, and they had this car, and the meat wagon sort of got out, and they had guns, and they got the people from the car who were drug runners and gangs that had come from Middlesex and London area, and they got them down on the road, hands behind their heads, and the police were behind the cars with guns. Those are specialist gun units from the police, and that is the only time I can remember seeing guns, and that was something like 17 years ago. I don't see guns here, and I know some of you will be enraged by my position here, but I'm thankful for that. I don't want the right to have guns, because I don't want other people to have the right to have guns, and I don't want to see guns. I don't leave the house ever thinking I'm going to potentially come across a gun incident. Even, heaven forfend, and not that I believe in heaven, involving myself. That's not going to happen to me in the UK. I have full confidence that I'm not going to fall foul of gun violence in the UK, because we don't have that right. Thank you for not having that right, UK. Now, in Utah, you've got the right to carry, both concealed or openly, a gun on that university campus. It's very difficult to stop gun violence when, in certain states, it's that easy to go about carrying guns in public. Now, I'm going to go to empathy. So this is Dean Withers. I don't know if you know Dean Withers, but he's like this young prodigy, young kind of liberal influencer sensation who has these, and he's been doing it for a few years now. So he used to be even younger, like a child, and he'd be arguing with these adults and winning these arguments about politics. So this is Dean Withers. He's probably 100% opposed to Charlie Kirk's politics. So this is, analogy to myself. And he's rightfully upset and showing empathy to Kirk's wife and kids. And this is what I want to access. And this is what I have to fight hard to overcome all this other stuff I've just been talking about, to access the part of me that's the most humane. Those who want to paint this horror onto everyone on the left, and this is a libertarian saying this, not a leftist, on the left need to think for a moment and realize that most people don't celebrate murders. This isn't left versus right, it's right versus wrong. And the human decency most of us have versus the actions of a violent sociopath. Don't let the murderer win. So this is Dean Withers.
His wife and children were in attendance, dude. Imagine, you know, imagine being a 12-year-old, you know, watching your dad fucking die. Nobody deserves that. Not even Charlie Kirk.
And say what you like about that, about, you know, emotional manipulation and whatnot, but, you know, that appears to be a genuine reaction, and that's the reaction that we need to hold to, because that is a human reaction. But the problem now is that this is being opportunistically taken advantage of by those in power at the moment. And if those in power are going to use this to generate further power through division and through the scapegoating of the left, then we are in for, or the Americans particularly, obviously, are in for one hell of a torrid next couple of years. You know, two and a half years? No, we got half a year. So 3.5 years, three and a third years left of Trump's administration, and it's going to be tough. This increasingly feels like the Charlie Kirk assassination is the US's Ernst von Rath moment. He was a German diplomat who was assassinated that led to Kristallnacht. Radical right-wingers are going to use this moment to foment and exploit the hurt and rage to justify hurting others. And we are going to now look at that. That's a main part of this video because it's coming from the president himself. So as somebody says here, we're all awaiting Trump's Kristallnacht moment, when he will use a tragedy like this to whip supporters into violence to justify a pogrom. Kristallnacht, Crystal Night, referring to the shards of broken glass, was when a Jewish teenager assassinated a German diplomat in Paris. In response, Hitler's most violent supporters rioted, especially breaking through glass storefronts of Jewish businesses. Trump repeatedly demonizes the Democrat Party, denying their legitimacy. We are all waiting for this Kristallnacht when his violent supporters riot against Democrats. You might think this is an overreaction until you see what is being said. So let's first go to this right-wing source here, Matt Forney, who weirdly is actually analogizing the right to the Nazis in Germany, as if he's owning this. Matthew Iglesias says, pro tip, don't analogize yourself to Hitler. So Charlie Kirk being assassinated, says Matt Forney, is the American Reichstag fire. That's odd. It's time for a complete crackdown on the left. Every Democratic politician must be arrested and a party banned under RICO. Every libtard commentator must be shut down. Stochastic terrorism. They caused this. Now, that is where the US is at the moment. That kind of division where the left, some on the left are saying Charlie Kirk deserved this because of all the things I was talking about earlier. And that they dismiss the empathy thing and say he deserved this, and he used that to justify his death, his own rhetoric. And some on the right, but unfortunately many exceptionally powerful people on the right, are saying things like this. It is time for a crackdown on the left. Every Democratic politician must be arrested and a party banned under RICO. You're thinking, goodness gracious. Like, let's remember that we have no suspect. We have no motive. We have no weapon. But the President of the United States and other people have taken to the airwaves to call for the purge of the opposition party. Unfortunately, Trump has missed the opportunity to lower the temperature. So we don't know who did it. We don't know why they did it. And we don't even have a weapon. Now, it's not to say it wasn't politically motivated. I assume it was. But to whip up this kind of sentiment without having the facts to hand is despicable. And that is what Donald Trump has done. This is his address to the nation. And by the way, there's a moment in this, or several moments maybe, where they've cut this, possibly used AI to sew the cuts together. So it looks like his finger disappears at one stage, and people are saying it's an AI deepfake. And the trees at the back, it's at the time that he says the word patriot. And if you do a frame-by-frame analysis, it is weird. But I assume that is because they would have cut things where he might have. Sometimes you can use AI to actually take out ums and ahs in. I'd use that very, very freely. Any kind of filler you can automatically take out. But what might then happen is you get the sewing together of frames that then you might think it's AI, because AI famously does funny things with fingers and stuff. I think this is genuine, but I just thought I'd say that first. So this is Trump's response.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America. He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth.
A couple of things that are really important to, just before I forget. So he started off by saying, I'm feeling grief and anger. Now, I think anger is justified, but to start your speech off like that is to, and not qualify that at all, is to say we should all be really angry. Let's use that anger. Because if I was to do this speech, I'd say I'm full of grief and anger, but I recognize that I need to check my anger, because anger, I could quote Darth Vader. It leads us to the dark side. I would be a lot more careful with my rhetoric there. Of course, Trump doesn't want to do that because he wants to use this. And then he's talking about Charlie Kirk being a martyr. And this is the kind of language of religious fundamentalism, waging war against whoever it is, infidels. Kirk is a martyr, and we should feel angry.
Charlie was also a man of deep, deep faith, and we take comfort in the knowledge that he is now at peace with God in heaven. Our prayers are with his wife, Erica, the two young, beloved children, and his entire family, who he loved more than anything in the world. We ask God to watch over them in this terrible hour of heartache and pain. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate.
Okay, this is a dark moment. How are you going to unite us and alleviate the darkness? How are you going to lead us into the light? What does leading us into the light look like?
His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. On campuses nationwide, he championed his ideas with courage, logic, humor, and grace. It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most...
Okay, so yeah, we should stop demonizing each other. People on the left should stop demonizing those on the right, and right should stop demonizing those on the left. Okay, this could be an opportunity to talk about unity here. It is long past time that we need to sort out this demonization. So how are we going to sort out this demonization? Because I assume you see this coming from both sides.
those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today.
So the radical left rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism you're seeing in America and Charlie Kirk's death. So this isn't unifying at all. This is scapegoating the left, and this will be used as an excuse to go after the left. That is what Donald Trump, the President of the United States, has done. Is there any unifying message here? Absolutely freaking not. This is a disgraceful message.
And it must stop right now. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity,
persecution,
and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country.
So now you have the permission to go after the funding of these organizations and the organization, sorry, the funding, of left-wing organizations and the organizations themselves. Donald Trump is giving a permission structure to be angry with the left for Kirk to be martyred. He's blaming the left, the radical left, for all, or at least most of the terrorism, it appears, going on in the United States and for the death of Charlie Kirk. And as a result, they are going to persecute those who are on the radical left and those organizations and their funders. This is Kristallnacht.
The attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others. Radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives.
So he's just cherry-picked the time, and we don't even know, the assassination, attempted assassination of himself by that kid in Pennsylvania, actually appears, his parents appeared to be veering to the right, actually, and were Trump supporters by all accounts. That's why we've heard nothing about it. But he's lumping that in with the radical left, and then he's cherry picking these incidences. He's not talking about Gabby Giffords. He's not talking about Hortman in Minnesota, who was just murdered on July the 4th with a husband and dog, and as a Democratic lawmaker by a Christian nationalist, Trump-supporting Republican, prepper, all of the above, and the attempted murder of the other lawmaker and his wife. Just completely forgotten. He cherry picks these ones and says, look at what the radical left is doing, while forgetting everything that the radical right is doing. And as I showed you last night in my live stream, if you just go and Google it now, is the left or the right more responsible for mass shootings in the US? And you'll find it's the right. Just those are the stats. So he's lying about the stats. He's lying about the general sense of causality here. And he's whipping up, he's fomenting discontent and division in the United States as a president, as a person that should be united, and they should be the United States. But this is the disunited states, as according to the dictator wannabe in chief.
Tonight, I ask all Americans to commit themselves to the American values for which Charlie Kirk lived and died, the values of free speech, citizenship, the rule of law, and the patriotic devotion and love of God. Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country. An assassin tried to silence him with a bullet, but he failed, because together we will ensure that his voice, his message, and his legacy will live on for countless generations to come. Today, because of this heinous act, Charlie's voice has become bigger and grander than ever before, and it's not even close. May God bless his memory. May God watch over his family, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Okay, typically a lot of mention of God, even though I don't think Trump has a religious bone in his body. I don't think Charlie Kirk is the best of America, but I do think his voice will go on, and I think it will be amplified by what has taken place. And when you're talking about like who did this and why did they do this, like I'm never going to be someone in this position, right? But if I was thinking, right, I'm on the left, say I'm really entrenched on the left, I'm like, right, damn it, this person really I find egregious. Someone like, say, Donald Trump himself. Like, the first thought, if it ever crossed my mind that I should go out and shoot this person, which obviously I'm not the sort of person where that would ever be one of my thoughts. But if it was, my initial next thought would be, well, that'd be stupid because I'd be turning him into a martyr. And actually, I would be uniting the opposition against me. So this is why some people are now coming up with theories about who was involved. Apparently, the FBI are even looking into foreign actors that could be involved in this, especially since it was quite a difficult sniper shot from a distance. You know, this is a pro, et cetera, and has disappeared and they haven't been caught. You know, who could do this? Is it some like wingnut left winger? But then surely if you're that, I don't know. I just think like it's so counterproductive. So if it is a left winger who is so annoyed with Charlie Kirk that they've taken the law into their own hand, or they're not the law, they have decided to go and do this, then they are insanely stupid because this will just backfire. As it already is. So here we have, is this Hassan Piker actually? Yeah, this is Hassan Piker, who was going to debate with Charlie Kirk in public in the very near distant future. The very near future, actually. Trump is signaling that he's going to use Charlie Kirk's death to launch a war against the left and liberal organizing. Now, we also have here Brian Krassenstein, who is on the left, saying, instead of bringing Americans together, Trump just delivered one of the most divisive and disgraceful speeches by any president in the aftermath of someone's death. He dishonors Charlie Kirk's name by turning his passing into a rallying cry to smear Democrats. Notice how he had no such outrage when far-right extremists assassinated Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, and we'll be returning to that. Now, here is what Joe Biden said from the Oval Office when he was president, when that kid attempted to assassinate Donald Trump. Compare and contrast.
And to remember, while we may disagree, we are not enemies. We're neighbors. We're friends, co-workers, citizens, and most importantly, we are fellow Americans. We must stand together. Yesterday's shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania calls on all of us to take a step back, take stock of where we are, how we go forward from here. Thankfully, former Trump is not seriously injured. I spoke with him last night, and I'm grateful. He's doing well, and Jill and I keep him and his family in our prayers. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victims who was killed. Corey was a husband, a father, a volunteer firefighter, a hero, sheltering his family from those bullets. We should all hold his family and all those injured in our prayers. Earlier today, I spoke about an ongoing investigation.
So on and so forth. You get the point that there you have this really unifying message from the president, and that's their job. The thing is, Biden sounds like a president in a democracy, and Trump sounds like a leader in an autocracy, trying to divide and conquer. And I think that's just deeply, deeply worrying. So Lewis Goodall, who is a UK-based journalist for the news agents, says Trump says radical left groups are responsible for worsening political violence across the US and suggests his administration will take action against these groups, though they remain undefined, does not address the rising political violence we've seen from the right. And that is a really important point. So Bakari Sellers says Trump didn't mention in his screed the plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, the storming of the Capitol January the 6th, pipe bombs left at the DNC, Democratic National Committee, or Congress, conference. Some were beginning to see the break-in to kidnap Nancy Pelosi and the brutal attack on husband Paul Pelosi, the assassination of Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, and the shooting of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. In other words, as mentioned, very clumsily cherry-picked in his speech there. And here's just, when you're talking about guns and violence, I don't know, this is worth looking at.
In the old days, boom, firing squad. No, it's true.
Boom, gun, bang, bing, bong. When we were strong, bing, and it goes quickly, right? It's called, you're dead.
The old.
So I do have a bit of an issue with Trump sort of, I want to say, pearl clutching here. I mean, it is, we need to be justifiably enraged and concerned and wanting to do the right thing about what happened. But I'm not sure that Trump is doing anything other than bringing about a civil war. And this is what Andrew Tate here says, who is a figure I despise, but saying civil war, full stop. That's all he says. We've had this from a lot of people. Tim Pool, as a right-wing influencer, often talks about, this is going to be civil war this, civil war that. I remember watching the Alex Garland film Civil War. It's now on streaming devices. I think it's on Amazon Prime. Well worth watching. And I watched that thinking, well, I don't think the US will get to that point, but this is a very interesting analysis of of human nature and the human condition with regard to her as a photographer and the desire to uncover things, but also is this about her, and lots of human elements there. But I kind of dismissed the Civil War part because I thought surely it won't, and now I'm thinking, holy cow, that really was a prescient movie. It is I think staggeringly on point, and we are seeing elements of this being put forward more and more. Here, Andrew Tate saying civil war. Here we've got Elon Musk saying if they won't leave us in peace, those pesky leftists, then our choice is to fight or die. Fight or die. So, as this source says, Elon Musk stoking violence, and I can guarantee that he personally will not be doing any fighting. And that's on the back of Elon Musk saying the left is the party of murder. So this is that division where either you try and unify the country or you try and divide the country. Elon Musk is trying to divide the country, and Trump seems to be going along with that. Sean McGuire saying the left lectured us for the last decade about the dangers of violence from the right. Well, yeah, I think rightfully so. From the assassination attempts of President Trump. But of course, remember, we don't know who did this and why they did it yet. So there's a lot of supposition. I'm not saying that it's not the most plausible explanation, but we just don't know that yet. Every time there's a violent shooting attack in this country, the unified democratic response is to try to tone down the temperature. Think about what Biden was saying, while the entire right wing immediately uses it as an excuse to dial things up to 11 and fantasize about murdering liberals. It's completely asymmetric. And that is the big concern at the moment. And, understand that it really is a concern, because listen to Nancy Mace. This is an elected politician in the United States saying absolutely ridiculous things. And then when she's challenged on that, saying, hang on, you're forgetting about Melissa Hortman here. What about her in that situation? Yet you're only blaming the Dems here. And then she's like, oh, don't talk about that now. We're only talking about Charlie Kirk and it's the Dems' fault. And it's like, whoa. This is an insane interaction.
I'm going to say this. Democrats own what happened today. I am devastated. My kids have called panicking. All the kids of every conservative in the country called panicking. Just because you speak your mind on an issue doesn't mean you get shot.
Then by that logic, do Republicans own the shooting of the two Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota? Isn't this on both sides?
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm asking
We
a
don't
serious
know what
question.
condition Charlie Kirk is in right now. Some raging leftist lunatic put a bullet through his neck.
She doesn't know who put the bullet through his neck. She says, are you kidding me? We don't know what conditions he's in. You can't say this. Yes, I can. I literally can say this. You're literally blaming Democrats and you don't know who did it. And I could put that right back on you. Are you serious right now? Charlie Kirk's injured and you're blaming raging left-wing Democrats and you don't know who did it. Are you serious, Nancy Mace? This is outrageous. He's so on point.
Panicking. Just because you speak your mind on an issue doesn't mean you get shot.
by that logic, do Republicans own the shooting of the 2 Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota?
Political.
Isn't this on both sides?
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm asking.
We
a
don't
serious
know
question.
what condition Charlie Kirk is in right now. Some raging leftist lunatic put a bullet through his neck, and you want to talk about Republicans right now? No.
No, I'm asking
no, not
you.
at all.
You said the Democrats have to own it too.
But I'm asking, Democrats own this.
But isn't there a problem
with
political violence across the spectrum?
Yeah, we're talking about Charlie Kirk right now. That's the subject of this that we're talking about right now. Democrats own this 100%.
So we're only allowed to talk about this incident. We're going to pick this out, one out of all the other incidences in the world, incidents in the US history of political violence. We're going to talk about this one and saying Democrats own this. And then we're going to go crazy at Democrats, but you're not allowed to bring up anything else. No, you're not allowed to bring that up. No, you're not. No, only Charlie Kirk. And we know full 100% this is radical leftists that are responsible for this. That is absolutely insane, and it is completely divisive. Like that sums up what is wrong with the polemic political landscape in the United States. It is absolutely insane what she's doing there, and so very dangerous. But she's not the only one. Laura Loomer, who's at the heart of the White House, she is responsible for sacking a load of or for the sacking of a load of national security advisors, etc., etc. Every prominent Democrat is speaking out against this monstrous attack, and every prominent Republican is calling for Democrats to be imprisoned and en masse, as says Micah Irfan here to Laura Loomer's quote Laura Loomer, "It's time for the Trump administration to shut down, defund and prosecute every single leftist organization. If Charlie Kirk dies from his injuries, his life cannot be in vain. We must shut these lunatic leftists down once and for all. The left is a national security threat." So she sacked national security advisors, effectively. And now she's calling on Donald Trump. We know Donald Trump has her ear, or she has his ear. Calling on the Trump administration to shut down, defund and prosecute every single leftist organization. So if you're on the left in the US, you will no longer continue to exist as an entity, because you will be shut down. The midterm elections in 2026 are now at stake. They are vulnerable. This is the Kristallnacht moment. Will Trump embrace retribution and scapegoating? Yes, he will. He's already doing that. Will the people around him do that? Yes, they will. Yes, they are. Laura Loomer, again, here, say, well, no, not again. This is what she said. Mike Nellis says, be warned about Loomer saying stuff like this. She once doxed my home address on this website, on Twitter, and repeatedly encouraged her followers to go after me, resulting in death threats that mentioned my son. So Mike Nellis is like, don't underestimate Laura Loomer's intentions and the danger she may cause. Now, it's worth reminding ourselves, or not reminding, this has just happened. RT posted, Kirk predicts who will try to kill him. They're going to do everything they can to murder. Laura Loomer reposted that. Jay in Kiev saying, no coincidence that Trump's tightest circle is always in lockstep with Russian propaganda networks. So Russia Today, the state propaganda network, is being reposted by Laura Loomer, who's also attacking the left and saying they should be locked up. This is exactly what Russia wants. There's all sorts of stuff going on here. Like, given that drones went into Poland 2 nights ago, and that was the top of everyone's list of issues going on in the world, that's nowhere to be seen today. It's all about Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk's death has hijacked the news cycles, and in a way that will see the left get absolutely attacked at a time when the Epstein scandals were at the most poignant, the Epstein scandal, and you've got the economy, all sorts of things. Trump's polling is absolutely underwater. This, if anything, is going to help the right. And that's why it goes back to, well, how do the left gain from this? And simply speaking, they don't. The left do not gain from this. So you're going to start seeing lots of theories about actually who did do this. Interesting, says Wajahat Ali, interesting that Elon Musk, MAGA and Trumpers are blaming the left for Charlie Kirk's murder, but the suspect hasn't been apprehended and we don't know anything about their ideology. What happens if it's a white GOP voter like the dude who tried to assassinate Trump last year? And then you see, Alistair Campbell from The Rest of His Politics, former Labour spin doctor, said, hearing some of the reactions from Trump, Musk and others, hard to avoid the conclusion that they either want a civil war or have literally no regard for the consequences of their words and actions. So let's look at some of these. Libs of TikTok, very famous right-wing influencer online. This is war. Joey Manorino, who previously had a sock puppet account as a black woman and was posting stuff as like, I'm a black woman, formerly voted Joe Biden, I'm not going to do that anymore. And then he accidentally cross-posted and he got found out. So don't trust him a single iota. But he says the Democratic Party must be classified as a domestic terror organization and their members, leaders treated accordingly. Enough is enough. Brian Eastwood, Charlie Kirk getting shot in the head is the shot heard around the country. I'm ready for civil war. You want to fight and you're going to get it. Oilfield Rando, I don't want the National Guard sent to Democratic cities anymore. I want the Air Force sent. So bomb Democrat cities. Sean Davis, when Democrats lose elections, they couldn't steal. They murdered the people they were unable to defeat. Patrick Casey, it's time to bring the hammer down on the left. Fox host Jesse Waters, they are at war with us. Whether we want to accept it or not, they are at war with us. And what are we going to do about it? Elon Musk, if they don't leave us in peace, then our choice is fight or die. Laura Loomer, as I've just told you. Here we have Jerome Memes saying Charlie Kirk has been shot. Enough is enough. Democrats need to be labelled a terrorist organisation. Matt Forney, as I've already said, Charlie Kirk being assassinated is the American Reichstag fire. It's time for the complete crackdown on the left. Every Democrat politician must be arrested and the party banned under RICO. Every libtard commentator must be shut down. This is stochastic terrorism. They caused this. Ascetica says they're going back. There's no going back after this. There's no more words to be said. The only way this ends is the complete annihilation of the Democrat Party. Gunter Eagleman, of course, they've declared war. Trump himself, Elon Musk, the left is a party of murder. Sean Davis again, the Democrat Party is a domestic terrorist organization whose most fanatics will not hesitate to murder their political opponents. This was not a one-off event. And Christopher Rufo says the last time the radical left orchestrated a wave of violence and terror, J. Edgar Hoover shut it all down within a few years. It is time within the confines of the law to infiltrate, disrupt, arrest and incarcerate all of those who are responsible for this chaos. I cannot tell you how dangerous the political climate is in the US now. The question might be how many of those are real people, how many are bot accounts and troll accounts. I don't know. But they're functionally doing the same thing. And there is a real problem, I think, with the rhetoric going on today already, where you are seeing the right saying things that the left never said after Melissa Hortman. Now, you had an MSNBC...
Talk to me about the environment in which a shooting like this...
Analyst was called Matthew Dowd, was interviewed on MSNBC, and he was asked about the environment and answered about the environment, and it ended up costing him his job. And yet we hear Trump, literally Trump, say similar things. You hear Jesse Waters on Fox News rant insanely about the left. You see the left getting blamed for everything. Matthew Dowd says this from the left and he loses his job.
Talk to me about the environment in which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, I emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. We don't know.
So he starts by saying, look, we don't know the full details of this. And, I go with what you said, but you've asked me about the environment. I'm going to answer the environment.
If this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so, we have no idea about this. But following up on what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
So saying that's the unfortunate environment. Now, if I was to be like, you know, you might say, well, that's really insensitive. But he was asked about the environment. And he's talking about causal responsibility, not moral responsibility. So he didn't say he deserves this, but he's saying, look, if you are involved in really hateful rhetoric, hate breeds hate, and hate breeds hate, and you spiral, and you are part of the environment in which you breed political violence. And I think that's, now, mate, is it too soon? But I think there's nothing particularly wrong with what he's saying if you interpret it like that. And on the other hand, Jesse Waters on Fox News says this.
This is clear incitement. Less than 1 hour after conservative commentator Charlie Kirk was tragically pronounced dead, MAGA Fox News host Jesse Waters goes live on air and declares war.
They are at war with us. Whether we want to accept it or not, they are at war with us. And what are we going to do about it? How much political violence are we going to tolerate? And that's the question we're just going to have to ask ourselves. Now, Charlie would want us to put as much pressure on these people as possible.
Wait. I just want to pause it. The chyron at the bottom says, Charlie Kirk assassin still on the loose. At this very moment, we do not know who did this. We don't know their ideology. You could make assumptions in your head, but in what reality is it okay to go on air in front of millions of Americans and use rhetoric about they're at war with us? It is very clear incitement. I have not seen a single politician on the Democratic side say this is okay. Everybody has unequivocally condemned it, and everybody should, so we can tone down the rhetoric, because again, when somebody who disagrees with you is murdered like this, that could lead to somebody who agrees with you getting murdered like this. It is a catalyst for violence that then becomes a chain reaction.
And that was kind of broadly where Dowd was going, and yet Dowd now has suffered, you know, by being sacked by MSNBC. And indeed, the reaction to Dowd from Fox itself was as follows.
Family. He encouraged students. So Matthew Dowd deserves to get fired, but this should send a message to the rest of the legacy media that are bringing on these commentators that are spreading this type of hatred, that this is no...
So she doesn't talk at all about Jesse Waters and his spreading of his incitements.
Longer acceptable. This preceded this situation with the hatred and then leading up to the assassination attempt on President Trump. We've had enough of the lies from the left, and they need to start regulating what is being said on these networks.
So the left are the ones that lie, you know, even though we fact check the right all the time, even though Donald Trump is one of the most voluminous liars in political history. But no, she has the gall to come out and like blame the left and accuse the left of lying.
John Caldwell, what would you like to add to that?
I would like to add, that's insane. So, you know, Dowd's lost his job because, you know, let's censor the left, right? So every time there's a violent shooting attack on this country, the unified Dem response is to try and tone down the temperature. I've already read this one. While the entire right wing immediately uses it as an excuse to dial things up to 11 and fantasize about murdering liberals. It's completely asymmetric. That was supposed to be that tweet. I pasted the wrong one. It was supposed to be the one about Dowd losing his job. So Rachel Bidikofer, who is someone who very closely surveys the rhetoric of MAGA and the beliefs of MAGA because she polls them. She's interested in polling. She's a polling expert. She's replying to Julie Roginski, who says, I would caution every right-wing influencer on this platform to stop blaming Democrats for this shooting. We don't even know who the suspect is at this moment. Calm down and try to unite the country during a tragic event for a change. Rachel Bidikofer says they're not going to do that. I monitor MAGA for a living. They are already tweeting about using this to wipe out the left. They even have a catchy phrase, we need to make this a turning point in the USA. And here's an example that Rachel Bidikofer just says, look, here is a MAGA social media influencer right now.
This video's in regards to Charlie Kirk. And this video's for the fucking liberals. It's war, motherfuckers. We're coming for you. We're coming for you. And spare me your fucking self-righteous bullshit lectures. I don't give a fuck. We're coming for you.
So it's probably a time that we should be calming down the rhetoric, but it seems that it's going the other way. Benjamin Ryan says Charlie Kirk was scheduled to debate a progressive influencer Hassan Piker at Dartmouth College on the 25th of September on Twitch livestream. Piker reacted to the news with horror, urging some of his followers to stop making jokes about the shooting, and he expressed fear that he could be similarly targeted. Quote, "This is terrifying incident," Piker said. "The reverberation of people seeking out vengeance in the aftermath of this violent, abhorrent incident is going to be genuinely worrisome." So you've got left-wing influencers now worried for their own safety due to retribution from the right, when that seems pretty justified when this guy said, "We're coming for you. We are coming for you." These are worrying times. And you have people like Jeremy Clarkson saying, "For the first time in my life, I'm genuinely frightened about being a newspaper columnist." So he's a right-wing newspaper columnist. And yet, let's look back to what he said. Jeremy Clarkson said, striking public sector workers, so if you're a teacher on strike, that's been me before. I've been on strike sort of 3 times in the past, should be shot. Oh, right. Top Gear presenter Jeremy Clarkson caused outrage last night when he said striking public sector workers should be shot dead in front of their families. And now he says, for the first time in my life, I'm genuinely frightened about being a newspaper columnist. So the hypocrisy is insane. Now, the White House has said, in honor of Charlie Kirk, President Trump is ordering all American flags throughout the US to be lowered to half-mast. All flags in the US lowered to half-mast. And they didn't do that for President Jimmy Carter, which I think always happens for when a president dies, does it not? And they refused Jimmy Carter's, hat tip to Jimmy Carter there. And they didn't lower the flags to half-mast. They didn't do it for Melissa Hortman and her husband, who were murdered in cold blood by Vance Bolter, as mentioned, a Trump-supporting Republican Christian nationalist. But no, Charlie Kirk, everything stops, flags half-mast, and it's all the left's fault. Everything's terrible. It's the left. Let's commemorate this person. By all means, commemorate, and by all means, lower the flags to half-mast. But the asymmetry going on here is absolutely staggering. So, 2 months ago, a Democratic lawmaker and her husband and their dog were murdered in their home, and there was not a moment of prayer in Congress. There was no lowering of flags. A Republican senator openly mocked their death, and other Republicans just ignored it. So, Senator Mike Lee mocked the death of Melissa Hortman. This was one of the things he did. Nightmare on Wall Street. So the guy in a latex mask, pretending to be a policeman, Vance Bolter, going to the door, and then going in and shooting the husband and wife and dog, dead. Mike Lee, I'm tracking the situation in Utah Valley very closely, he said just yesterday. Please join me in praying for Charlie Kirk and the students gathered there. He didn't pray for Melissa Hortman. He said nightmare on Wall Street. Ha, ha, ha. Because Tim Walz was a governor in Minnesota. Absolutely incredible. I did a video last week saying this shooting was forgotten. How quickly was this forgotten? Because it was Democratic lawmakers that were shot. Trump did not go to the funeral of these people. He did not make a phone call to the governor in consolation. Trump says he won't waste time calling Minnesota governor after the slayings. Suspect Vance Bolter has been charged with murder over the shooting deaths of a Minnesota Democratic lawmaker and her spouse. So you're talking about political violence. We know the ideology. We know why it happened. He had a list of 70 people, predominantly liberals and Democrats. It's wild to see the left blame for all the violence in the country when the right won't even pick up the phone when 2 Democrats get assassinated. Absolutely insane. Incredible. Mike Nellis says, obviously there's bigger news happening here right now, but just to let you know that Senate Republicans just voted against releasing the Epstein files. Every Democrat voted to release them. Susan Collins was a deciding vote to protect Trump and others named in the files. So while all this is happening, there is a distraction whether, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you say this was done in order to distract away from Epstein files. I wouldn't begin to say that myself, but it has happened. There is a distraction that has taken place, and it is not cool. Stuff will go under the radar now that should be front and center of political discourse, not least the Epstein scandal. And, just to fuel a bit of conspiracy theory thinking, this was Charlie Kirk, I think just last week, was it? Just days ago.
I think the DOJ should immediately move to unseal all the Epstein documents in the Southern District of New York.
Yeah. Everything. Everything except child sexual assault material.
I think every file should be released to the public the same way as the JFK files. Let the American people decide.
Put them out there, because if there's nothing in there, then we can see there's nothing in there. Now,
a couple of days later, he's dead. But if Trump's talking about the legacy, we need his views, his legacy. We're going to amplify his voice. You'll know more about him now than ever before. Okay. Well, one of the last things he was saying was release the Epstein files. How about amplifying that message? And I'll leave you with this. Again, it is conspiracy theory kind of thinking, but there are some questions. I mean, these are questions I would and issues I would like to see discussed. So something doesn't add up, says Brian Allen. Everything we know so far points to Charlie Kirk's assassin being a trained professional, not some unhinged amateur with a grudge. Let's break this down. There was one shot, one kill from hundreds of yards away. That's sniper level precision. No attempt to spray bullets or take out multiple targets. No chaos, just the hit. The shooter fled immediately after confirming impact. No showboating, no manifesto, just extraction. Evaded law enforcement on site, local and federal. That takes planning, skill and training. If this was some lone nut or keyboard radical, we'd be seeing sloppier evidence trails, but this was surgical. This wasn't rage, it was a mission. Probably something to be said about that. I don't know. This always worries me thinking like this, but actually those are data points that do need explaining. But the main point about this is the absolute irresponsible behaviour of the President of the United States, who appears to be justifying the persecution of political opposition in the United States. I am really afraid for the November 2026 midterm elections. I think this is a Kristallnacht, and this is the turning point. It will be a turning point. I think they're correct in saying that. It's a turn towards a very dark future in the United States, and I'm deeply, deeply worried. That said, a political activist has been assassinated in the US. We don't know who by, but that is absolutely abhorrent, and we should condemn any kind of political violence that looks like that. So I have empathy for his loved ones. He's leaving behind 2 children that will no longer have a child, have a father, and sadly enough, they will probably grow up to resent any political opposition in a vehement manner, and you wouldn't blame them. What a horrible childhood they could potentially be facing in terms of having lost a father to assassination, and all the rhetoric and hate that they will no doubt be witness to and maybe feel themselves. So sad that at a time of much needed unity, there is much lauded division.